Today we're going to learn about Parshat Mishpatim. It's on page 417 of the art scroll Chumash. Parshat Mishpatim is a very saturated parsha. It has many laws between man and the fellow. There are total 54 mitzvot. So it's almost 10% of all mitzvot are in Parshat Mishpatim. There are 23 mitzvot that are positive and 31 negative commandments. So we're going to mention a lot of mitzvot today, in addition to going through the parsha. Now, the parsha starts with laws of Jewish slaves. Jewish slaves is a real concept. We have Jewish slaves and non-Jewish slaves. Non-Jewish slaves may be captured in war or they may be bought from other nations. Jewish slaves usually result from a Jew who steals, and then when he needs to pay back what he stole, he already spent the money or he used the object and he doesn't have money to pay. So instead of just putting him in prison where he does not provide any benefit to the person he stole from, the person he stole from still lost the money. So what we do is we sell this person for servitude for up to 6 years, depending on how much he stole, what is the value of his work. We sell him for up to 6 years of service, and the money we give to the person who he stole from. And he basically now works for to pay back what he stole. In addition, instead of spending time in prison where he's going to learn how next time not to be caught, instead he spends his next 6 years in a family, in a Jewish family that is successful. They have enough money for themselves, plus they have enough money to support this man with his entire family. Because when we sell someone as a slave, not only he lives by his master and he's fed and clothed by his master, but his entire family also. The master takes upon himself to provide housing and food for entire family.
This one, right? Over here?
Now, after 6 years, when the time comes for Shemitah, for the 7th year, the slaves go free. In addition to working for his master, doing physical labor, if he comes with his wife and children already, the master has the option of giving him a second wife. And this second wife would be a non-Jewish slave woman. A non-Jewish slave woman who he marries temporarily while being the slave. And the children that are born from this marriage are gonna have the legal status of slaves, like their mother. And when this man is gonna become free, he will leave with his original family, but his second wife, since she's a slave and her children are slaves, she's gonna stay by the master.
This is for non-Jewish slaves, right?
This is for a Jewish slave who comes in already married. If he comes in not married yet, then the master cannot give him this non-Jewish slave woman as a wife. For the fear that since he doesn't have a regular wife and children, he might like his conditions so much because he has a job, he has a place to sleep, food, and plus he has wife and children, so he will probably never leave and he will want to remain slave forever. So we don't want that to happen. So we only allow him to have a second wife if he already has original wife on his own.
But why to give a non-Jewish wife then? Or
Just to create
the kids will not be
kids
Jewish then,
who are going to be slaves for the master. In fact, it says such a man works for his master double. He works during the day as a physical laborer, and during the night he works to make more slaves for his master. Again, I just want to use this opportunity to mention the difference with which we treat our children, slaves, and the way the non-Jewish concept of slaves is. Right? We know from American history, from the movies that we've seen, how they treated slaves in America and all over the world, with cruelty, with harsh labor, similar to how Jewish people were treated in Egypt, where they may beat them, they may, if they want, kill them. However, this is not the Jewish way. A Jewish slave is a human being, he's a respected person, we're not allowed to hit him, and the opposite. If we're talking about a non-Jewish slave, if a Jewish master hits his non-Jewish slave so hard that he damages him permanently, the slave goes free. An example of that is if the master knocks out his tooth, something small as a tooth. He's still fully functional human being, he can still work? No. Since you hurt him so much to damage him permanently that he lost his tooth, which is never going to grow back, the slave goes free. Why? Because you misused your power, you are not fit to be a good master, you have to let this slave go free. Now, it's not only for a tooth, it's for any limb that gets permanent damage. This is even for a non-Jewish slave. And with Jewish slaves, we're even more careful. You're not even allowed to give him a job that was not his profession before he became a slave. For example, if he was office worker, you cannot give him menial task. You cannot make him clean bathrooms or be a farmer if he is not used to that job. Right? You're not allowed to degrade him, this Jewish slave. And again, the Jew may only become a slave if that will be better for his life ultimately. Either if he's so poor he cannot provide for his family, he sells himself. This way he can live respectfully and work for his food and shelter, as opposed to being on the street asking for charity. And if he's sold for stealing, again, he has opportunity to start his life again. He will work to pay back for what he stole. He may learn new profession. He will learn from the family he is with how to be a good citizen. And when he leaves, the master is supposed to give him gifts of food, clothing, and money so that he can start his life again. He can start his business. He can maybe buy a field and become a farmer again. As opposed to coming out of prison and you have a record and you cannot find a job. Nobody's going to take you because they don't want a criminal at their work. Now we continue, page 419, and the Torah says, what if in fact this Jewish slave likes you so much, right? If you think that it is possible for a non-Jewish slave of a non-Jewish master to love his master so much that he wants to stay a slave, you're not going to believe such a thing. But by Jews, it's possible that the slave is going to like his working conditions so much that he's going to say, it's better for me to be a slave than to be a free man. I would like to stay. And plus, I like the wife you gave me. And I like my children. Let me stay. Is he allowed to stay or not? So number one, this is not a good thing for a Jew to say, because Jews are supposed to be servants of Hashem. They are supposed to be free men who spend most of their life devoted to service of Hashem, self-improvement. They're not supposed to have another master over themselves. And so the Torah looks down upon a Jew who likes to be a slave, and a Jew who says, I liked my 6 years of slavery, let me continue being a slave. However, the Torah does allow such a Jew to continue being slave. After certain procedure of making a hole through his ear, he is allowed to serve the master until the year of Jubilee, the 50th year of the 50-year cycle, when even the slave who loves his master must leave and become free man.
Which one? Which year?
50th year, which is in the Torah called Yovel. In the English term taken from the Hebrew is Jubilee. Jubilee. The
So
Torah
it means for 50 years, right? He's allowed to work
up to 50 years.
Instead of 6 years.
Preferred is 6. If he wants to stay more, we allow him to stay until the 50th year. Now, he may have started in the middle, so maybe he only has 25 years left. Once the Jubilee year comes, and it's a set time for the whole world, once it comes, no slaves, no Jewish slaves are allowed to stay slaves. They're obligated to go and start their life again. If they're too old, let their children go and start their life again, right? We don't want Jews to be permanent slaves from generation to generation.
Can they just change the master? No?
They could if they want. After the Jubilee, they can sell themselves again. Now, the Torah goes to speak about a different kind of a slave. This is called Amma Ha'ivriya. This is a girl who was sold into slavery by her father. Now, this sounds harsh, but again, understanding it with a proper perspective, you have a family that is poor. The father cannot provide for his family. He barely has money just to pay for bread and water for himself. He has a choice, either to let his daughter try to earn living on her own, which will result in her most likely becoming a prostitute, or he has a choice of finding a nice Jewish young man who has the means of supporting his daughter and selling his daughter. We're talking about a young daughter who is under 12 years old, selling her as a servant, with understanding that when she becomes 12, the master who is buying her will marry her, and she will become his full-fledged wife.
Free now, right?
Free wife. Either way, once she turns 12, she either goes free anyway, or the master marries her. But originally the master promises to marry her. He says, I'm willing to provide for your shelter, clothing, food right now, without marriage. You're just gonna do some household tasks for me as a servant in exchange for me taking care of you. And then when you become mature, I will marry you. So given this choice, every father who cares about his daughter will of course find a nice Jewish man and sell his daughter as a servant, with option of marrying into a nice wealthy family once she becomes mature. And that usually happens. The master marries her. However, what if when she becomes mature, the master says, you know what, you're too young for me, I have a son. the master is allowed to give her choice of marrying his son. Now the son may marry this girl and she will become his again full-fledged wife. No remembrance of her being a slave. However, if the father and the son both don't want to marry her and she already becomes 12 years old, she goes out for free and she can find any husband that she likes. Now, the Torah continues and says, if the master ends up marrying her, and the master may have other wives. Maybe the master has a wife that from before, or maybe he will marry someone in addition to her later. The master may think, I have one wife who comes from a respectable, wealthy family, and I have this young wife who used to be my slave, and out of pity for her I bought her, and out of pity for her I married her. So maybe I can treat this former slave girl less than I treat my respectable wife. So the Torah says not allowed. He has to treat her the same way as his other wife. He may not give her less clothing, he may not give her less food, and he may not give her less physical relationship than his other wife. And from here we learn that even the slave girl that you married, you have to treat with such respect, how much more so if you marry a regular free woman, how much respect you have to give her. And from here we learn negative commandment, that a man is not allowed to say no to his wife if she wants to buy clothing, if she needs clothing, if she needs food, he has to provide for her, whatever diet she wants to keep, and relationship.
Yeah.
We view marriage not that the wife is there to satisfy the husband, but rather that you take a wife because you want someone in your life who you can take care of. And this man, let's look from the point of view of this rich man. You have this rich man. He has his own wife. He has children already. But he looks at his life and he says, I already have a family that I'm taking care of. They are fully taken care of. My wife is happy. I provide her with everything she needs, attention, everything. But I still have more potential. I have more money, I have more time, I have more physical strength that I can devote to another human being. Let me marry one more wife. So such a man is allowed to go and marry one more wife to start a second family.
I forgot how many were allowed? 4?
As many as you can handle.
So 4 on the must.
Kings have a limit of 18. Regular men who don't have a whole country on their shoulder, if they happen to be rich and capable physically, emotionally, they can have as many as they want. As long as they can provide for each one of them, again with food, clothing, and attention.
Today it doesn't count, no?
Today we don't do it because we have to, number one, we have to follow the law of the land, and in America it's not permissible. And also for Ashkenazim, their rabbis made a decree that they're not allowed to marry more than one wife. Again, they saw that man can hardly handle and support one wife. So they said, don't even try. But by Sephardim, if you live in a country where it's permissible, you're allowed to. Now, this man says, I have a choice. I can marry another woman who comes from a rich family, or I can marry a poor girl who, if I don't take her, she's going to be on the street. And he says, okay, I'm going to do kindness to her. I'm going to marry her. I'm going to provide her with all her needs, and then when she grows up, I'm going to marry her. So the man who marries more than one wife is not doing it for his own pleasure. He is doing it because he has more resources and he wants to share it with others. Now the Torah continues and says, someone who kills another human being must be killed.
Rabbi, before we go there, so when we talk about those three things for a wife, the third thing is a physical relationship,
Yes.
not emotional relationship. With
It
her.
comes. You cannot have a physical relationship without first having an emotional.
So it also
connection.
implies that should be
Of
you should
course,
be able
it-
to spend time, listen, make sure she's
Attention.
happy emotionally.
Yes.
Each of your
yes,
wives, right?
Yes. In fact, it says that a man and a wife are not allowed to be intimately together unless there is peace between them and unless they both willingly are doing it. And so the emotional closeness must be there before the physical relationship. So again, a murderer must die. Now we have two kinds of murderers. We have intentional murderer, which has death penalty, and we have unintentional murder. Someone who killed out of negligence, let's say a car crash, even if it was his fault, but he did not have in mind to kill somebody.
But if someone influenced others to kill for him, is it a direct or indirect murder?
It's
them.
indirect, because we say a messenger to do a sin is responsible for his own actions. Of course, the one who sent him is also punished, but not to the same extent as if he himself killed, murder. Because we say a person has freedom of choice, and if someone tells you, I'm gonna pay you to kill somebody, please go and kill somebody, the person who carries out the murder, he makes his own conscious decision, I want to kill. So he is fully responsible for his action. He is judged as the murderer and he is put to death. The person who sent him is not guilty of murder. He is guilty of influencing someone, like you said, but it's not direct murder. Because again, this we're not talking about a machine, but a human being who has to make his own choice. So in Hebrew this is called Ein Shaliach Lidvar Aveira. You cannot appoint someone to do an Aveira for you. The Aveira is going to be on his account. Of course, you're going to be punished for a different Aveira, for putting a stumbling block in front of the blind. Blind here means someone who does not have full understanding of his actions. And so you allow the person to do a sin, so it's like you put a stumbling block in front of the blind. So Torah says if someone killed unintentionally, he has to go to a special place that is designed for unintentional murderers. This is called Ir Miklat, a city of refuge. Then the Torah goes to speak about hitting your parents. Someone who hits his parents is much more serious than someone who hits other people. And therefore, he deserves death penalty. Imagine, we have to respect our parents so much, and surely you're not allowed to hit them. And if someone hits his parents so much that either he causes the blood to come out, or he bruises his parents, it carries death penalty.
Rabbi, it says here exactly to who curses, right? Curses meaning
that's 2 lines later.
Oh, okay.
Pasuk 15 says someone who strikes his father or mother should be put to death. Then we speak about kidnapping. Someone who kidnaps a man and sells him, or he enslaves him, deserves death penalty. Then someone who curses his father or mother, death penalty. Now we're going to the topic of damages. Someone who damages another human being physically. If you hit another human being and you damage him, you have to pay 5 things. You have to pay for his loss of work, for the time that he cannot go to work and he loses his wages, you have to pay for that. You have to pay for doctor bills or medicine. You have to pay for the pain that you caused. And how much do you have to pay for pain? How do you evaluate pain? So we say, imagine if you would have gotten the same damage but with painkiller. Let's say someone would tell you, I want to hit you and bruise you, but I'm going to beforehand give you a painkiller that you're not going to feel. You're still going to have a bruise, or you're still going to have broken arm, or you're still going to have an arm that is cut off, but you're not going to feel pain. How much are you willing to pay for such painkiller, anesthetic? So we ask people, we do survey, and the value, how much person would be willing to spend money and not feel that pain, that's how much you have to pay this person, because you caused him to feel that pain. Plus you have to pay him for shaming him, for embarrassment at the time of the incident, that everybody saw that you slapped him, you kicked him, you hit him. Embarrassment that now he has to walk with without an arm, with a bruise, whatever it is. And you have to pay him, the number 5, for market value of his loss. Meaning, let's say now he doesn't have a finger. What is the market value of a worker who has a finger as opposed to a worker who doesn't have a finger? So we evaluate it on the slave market. How much would you pay for a healthy slave with all his limbs attached, as opposed to a slave with one of his limbs missing? So these 5 cover all damages.
Rabbi, just going back to the 15, 16, 17 pasuks, right? All of these are, whatever it says to be put to death, these are all impractical commandments, right?
Right now, we don't have authority to give physical punishment to people. We cannot kill people. The court, now Jewish court cannot kill people. We don't have authority to give lashes, and we don't even have authority to give fines to people. We only have authority to judge between people and to decide who is guilty, and the guilty party has to pay the one that was damaged, but we cannot assign additional fines on top of just paying the damages.
So are we counting this in 613?
These are counted in 613 mitzvot, but practically we cannot do them. I mean, we still are not allowed to hit our parents, but the punishment of death penalty doesn't apply. By the way, the punishment of death penalty by a Jewish court was only administered if 2 witnesses saw this man doing the sin and they warned him beforehand. They gave him a warning, you're about to commit this sin is punishable by this punishment, we urge you not to do it. And he says, I understand the severity of it, I know what I'm doing, I know this punishment, I'm doing it anyway. And only then we can punish him, because we don't want to punish an innocent person or a person who didn't realize what he's doing, or didn't expect what his actions are going to cause. So without 2 kosher witnesses, we don't give capital punishment. Then the Torah says that if a man will strike his slave and the slave dies, that man is killed. Imagine, if you hit your slave so much, so hard, that he's gonna die under your hand, such a man deserves death penalty.
Which pasuk is this?
This was Pasuk 20. Next, when two people fight, this is Pasuk 22. When two people fight, and by accident they hit a bystander. In this case, a woman who is pregnant. Now there are two scenarios. This woman may miscarry and the child may die, and the woman herself may die. So the Torah says that if she miscarries, then we evaluate the value of the pregnancy, and the man who hit her has to pay the family, the husband, the value of the pregnancy. However, if a woman will die, then there is a more severe punishment. The Torah says, a life for a life. Now, what does it mean, life for a life?
Which will do the same thing to the person, right? Close the death.
Now, here is a question, a legal question. This man did not intend to hit a bystander. He wanted to hit his enemy, the one he was fighting against. So now the question is, if I want to hit one man, so I have intent to hit and maybe even to kill, but by accident I hit someone else and I kill them, am I judged as a premeditated murder or as unintentional murder?
Both, no?
I only killed one person, and I killed them unintentionally. I wanted to kill someone else.
Yeah, so not both.
I can't be both. Either I did it on purpose or I did it not on purpose. And if I did it on purpose and there was a warning, there's death penalty. And if I didn't mean to kill, then there is no death penalty.
But he still killed. He didn't mean, but he still killed.
Yeah, he didn't mean, but the punishment is different. Whether you killed on purpose or not, the punishment is different.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a machloket among sages how to interpret this case. When it says life for life doesn't mean literally, because he had intent to kill, or it means the value of a life he must pay. For final halacha, I'm not sure, so we're going to leave it as a machloket for now. However, the Torah continues, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, a hand for a hand, a foot for a foot, a burn for a burn, a wound for a wound, a bruise for a bruise. Now this, we agree, that does not mean that if I give you a bruise, you have to give me a bruise. No. If I give you a bruise, I'm obligated to pay you for the damages that I gave. So when the Torah says an eye for an eye, does not mean that the court now goes and takes your eye out. Rather, we evaluate all these 5 damages that we mentioned, and I have to pay for all of them. So an eye for an eye means the value of an eye I have to pay. Then we spoke about killing a slave, that carries the death penalty. What about damaging a slave? Again, both of these are talking about non-Jewish slaves. If a man, this is Pasuk 26, strikes the eye of his slave or a tooth of his slave, and both of them are knocked out, the slave goes free. However, if a Jew hits his Jewish slave and he damages them, then the Jew doesn't go free, but rather he gets a payment for the value of his tooth or his limb. This is the difference between Jewish slave and non-Jewish slave. Again, the non-Jewish slave goes free, Jewish slave gets paid for the damages. Next section deals with damages by animals. First, if an animal, this is Pasuk 28, if an ox shall gore a man or a woman and he shall die, the ox is stoned. We're talking about an ox that did it for the first time. It's something unexpected, so the owner is not responsible. So the only thing we do is that we kill the ox, and you're not allowed to eat the flesh of it or sell it. You have to just bury it. However, if it was an ox that gores habitually, which means it did it already 3 times, then the owner already knows what kind of ox he deals with. The owner is not allowed to keep such an ox. The owner should have killed this ox before. And by keeping this ox around, he is guilty now. And that's what it says in Pasuk 30, when an atonement payment shall be assessed against him, he shall pay as a redemption for his life. He has to pay the family of the deceased the value of the life that he just took away. Now Pasuk 32 says, if the ox shall gore a slave, then you must pay 30 silver shekels to the master, but the ox is still stoned. Again, when an animal kills a human being, such an animal cannot stay alive. The value of human life is so great that the animal must be killed. But in addition to that, the master of the ox has to pay the master of the slave 30 silver shkalim. Pasuk 33. If a man digs a pit, or he uncovers an existing pit, and an ox or a donkey falls into that pit, the man who dug or uncovered the pit must pay for the damage of the ox or donkey. However, if a human being fell into this pit, then it's not the owner of the pit's responsibility, because we expect people to watch where they're going. It's only an animal who might not pay attention and they get damaged, that's what you're responsible. Of course, in the heaven you are responsible for everything, and living in open pit, in public domain, is a dangerous thing to do. However, in a human court you're not responsible, because the other person also had the responsibility to watch where he's going. Pasuk 35, if a man's ox strikes another ox and the ox dies, which means that one animal damages another animal. So what do? The owner of the aggressor has to pay half of the damage. How do we do it? If he doesn't want to pay, what we do is we sell the living ox and we divide its money. And the carcass too shall they divide, which means this is just in other words, the Torah is telling you, pay half of the damage. But the damage is only paid from the value of the ox that attacked. Which means, if the ox that attacked was worth, let's say, $1,000, but the animal that he killed, let's say, was some special animal that is worth $10,000, the maximum that the owner of the attacker is going to pay is $1,000. He's going to pay only for half of the damage, which is out of 10,000 is going to be only 5,000 maximum, and only out of the value of his animal, which is $1,000. He's not responsible for more than the value of his animal. That is only if this is the first time or second time that the animal attacked. However, if this is an ox that habitually gores, then he has to pay full damages.
And the ox is being killed, right?
No.
After the third attempt.
No, it's only if he kills a human being, then he is killed after the first. Here, when he only gores animals, he's not killed. Now, in Pasuk 37, this is interesting halacha. If a man steals an ox or a sheep, and then he slaughters it or sells it, he has to pay 5 cattle instead of an ox, 5 cows instead of the cow that he stole, or 4 sheep instead of the sheep that he stole. We have 3 different levels. Sometimes when you steal, you just have to return what you stole. Sometimes when you steal, you have to pay double of what you stole. Sometimes, like in this case, when you steal, you have to pay 4 or 5 times of what you steal. Okay, I'm not going to speak too much about it, even though there is what to speak about. We're going to continue, because there's a lot to cover. In chapter 22, self-defense. This is the case where you find someone coming into your house while you are inside. Are you allowed to act in self-defense and kill the man who is coming into your house? So the Torah says, if you have suspicion that the man who is coming in is willing to kill, you are allowed to kill him. However, if you are sure that he is not armed, if he sees that someone noticed him, he's going to run away, then you're not allowed to kill him. But under normal circumstances, robbers who come into the house, they have intent that if someone rises against me, I'm going to kill them. So therefore, under normal circumstances, we don't take chances, and if you see someone coming into your house, or even if you see someone's coming into someone else's house, you're allowed to kill them. Of course, if you can stop them effectively with another method, not killing them, you should do that first. However, we have responsibility to protect other people's lives, and we have to kill the attacker first. The classical case is if someone is tunneling in. He's digging the tunnel. While he's inside the tunnel, he didn't steal yet. He did not get into the house yet. You can already kill him. Next. This is Pasuk 3. If man steals and the theft is found in his possession, he shall pay double. From Pasuk 4, we speak about more damages by animals. If a man permits his livestock to devour a field, which means if your animal eats in someone else's field, you have to pay damages. Or if your animal walks on someone else's field and tramples flowers or fruit, vegetable, you have to pay for damages. Pasuk 5, damage by fire. If you start fire and you don't watch it and the fire spreads by itself, we're not talking about arson. For arson, you're for sure obligated to pay for damages. We're talking about you just set fire in your property, a permissible fire, and the wind spread the fire, you're responsible and you have to pay for damages. There are some guidelines, but in general you pay for damages. Next section deals with guardians. For example, if someone asked you to watch something for them, and the item that you're watching gets damaged. Are you responsible or not? So we have 4 different levels. Number 1 is unpaid guard, a free watchman. Such a free guard, he is responsible only for negligence. If he was negligent in his job, he has to pay for damages. However, if this was accident, he's not responsible because he's not paid. He's not expected to put in so much effort. He's doing you a favor. The next one is someone who is a paid guard. The paid guard is responsible for theft, for loss, but not for something that happened beyond his control. Which means, if it was armed robbery, not regular theft, but armed robbery, if it was an accident that he could not prevent, let's say a hurricane, earthquake, things that he was beyond his normal duty, he's not responsible. Then we have the third guard is called a borrower. We usually don't think of a borrower as a guard, but borrower is obligated to make sure that the item that he's borrowing is not damaged. Borrower has the highest responsibility. Since he's getting the use of the item for free, we expect him to take care of the item to the utmost. And he is responsible not only for negligence, he's responsible even for accidents. Even for things that are beyond his control, he's taking responsibility for, because it's as if he's becoming the new owner. Once I'm borrowing something from you. The only thing he is not responsible for is regular wear and tear. Since the whole purpose of me borrowing the item is to use it. So when you gave it to me, you expected me to use it. And let's say I borrowed your car and I drove, let's say, 1,000 miles, and you knew that I'm going to drive 1,000 miles. And during those 1,000 miles, the tires got, rubbed out. The engine now has 1,000 miles on it. That I'm not responsible to pay for. That you knew. Or if an animal dies, let's say I borrow an animal, and the animal dies or the car dies from normal use. The time came for it to die, it dies. That's not my responsibility. It's just the lifetime of this object or animal finished. And the fourth is a renter, someone who pays for the use of the object. And the renter is responsible for theft and for loss, but not accident. And also normal wear and tear he's paying for anyway. But the renter usually pays for that. Okay. Then we go to seduction. If a man seduces an unmarried, unbetrothed virgin, he has to marry her.
Virgin? She has to be a virgin? She could be not virgin.
No, if she's a virgin, he has to marry her. Why? Because it's harder for a girl who is not a virgin to get married. So even though you convinced her and she did it willingly, but you still have responsibility to marry her. If her father doesn't want you to marry her, you have to pay her father the difference in the value of a girl who is a virgin as opposed to who is not, which is 50 shekel. Then we say we're not allowed to a sorceress or a sorcerer to live. We have to put them to death.
Like a witch or something.
A witch.
Yeah.
And Pasuk 18, anyone who lies with an animal must be put to death. This is bestiality. Must be put to death. Idolatry death penalty. Now, we switch the topic. Sensitivity to the helpless and abandoned. You shall not hurt or oppress, make fun of a ger, a convert, a widow, or an orphan. These are three classical people who are helpless, meaning an orphan, someone who doesn't have parents, no one to take care of him. A widow, someone whose husband died, again, she doesn't have someone to take care of her. A convert, he came from a different nation, he joined our nation, he left his family, his society behind, he is again a lonely man. He needs our support. We're not allowed to hurt them in any way. We're not allowed to hurt any Jewish person.
But who was the first one?
The first one is a convert, a widow, an orphan.
Said 4 people, no? 4 types, no? 3?
3.
Okay.
Then, when you lend money to people, do not lay interest upon them. Not allowed to lend money with interest. You must provide people with free loans. It's a negative commandment on both the lender and the borrower.
Jewish people only, right?
Jewish people. Both lender and borrower are not allowed to do it. Even if the borrower wants to take the loan with interest, not allowed. You're not allowed to curse either God, we're not allowed to curse a leader, a Jewish leader, death, but this is not from here.
No, when they say curse, they mean, what do they mean by cursing? Like saying bad words about the leader or like wishing him death?
Yeah, cursing means with a real curse, with the name of Hashem. Then it says that whatever you promise, you have to fulfill. Meaning, if you promise to give a donation to Beit HaMikdash, to bring a korban, anything else you promise, make sure you fulfill it. Then we have some laws of animals, that after an animal is born, for 7 days you have to first allow it to be with its mother. Only then you can bring it as a korban on the 8th day. And you shall not eat flesh of an animal that was torn in the field. This is called terefa. We're not allowed to eat an animal that was not slaughtered properly. Chapter 23, integrity of the judicial process. That the witnesses must be honest. Witnesses must not lie. There should be no bias of the judge to either side. You're not allowed to favor not the poor person, and you're not allowed to favor the rich. You have to treat them equally. And it says the judges should not follow majority for evil, which means if the judge feels that his fellow judges are making a mistake, he is not supposed to say, they're the majority. It's still going to be decided not like what I say. Why should I just enter into argument with them? Why should they not find favor in me? Let me just follow them. Not allowed. Even if you feel it's not going to help the case, you still have to express your opinion. And we learned many more laws from this sentence, second pasuk. Do not be a follower of the majority for evil. For evil you're not allowed, but for good you're supposed to go follow majority. Okay, then if you find a lost object, you shall return it to the owner. Then if you see an animal of your friend falling under its burden, you are supposed to help him to unload the animal. This is also practically refers to if you see someone struggling carrying heavy objects, you help them. We continue with laws of judgment. Do not pervert the judgment Again, no bias between rich and poor, someone who is honorable or not. We have a concept of innocent until proven guilty. Do not execute the innocent. Even if the judge feels that this man is a criminal and he is guilty, if you don't have two kosher witnesses and you don't interrogate them properly, you're not allowed to make someone guilty. Again, if not proven guilty in the court of law, even if you yourself saw it and you're the judge, not allowed to put a penalty upon him unless there were two kosher witnesses testifying. This, Hashem says, should not worry you, for I shall not exonerate the wicked. Don't worry, there is justice in this world. Even if you cannot bring him to proper punishment, don't worry, I'll take care of him, Hashem says. So the judge doesn't have to worry that perhaps he is making wrong judgment.
So at those times when there was no forensic evidence and all of that, the only way they would make someone guilty is if there are two witnesses.
Yes,
basically.
only two witnesses. Next is, do not accept a bribe. Even if you're planning to rule correctly, even if you say, I'm going to take a bribe from him, but I'm still going to go against him. Or I'm going to take bribe for him, but he deserves to be right anyway. Not allowed to take bribe. Of course, you're not allowed to take bribe to change your judgment. Be considerate with feelings of others. Do not oppress a stranger. Because you know the feelings of a stranger, because you were a stranger in Egypt. Then we have the law of Shemitah. For 6 years you work your land, but in the seventh leave it untended and unharvested. Similarly, we have a Shemitah of the week. We have Shabbat of the land and we have Shabbat of time, which is the seventh day. 6 days you shall work, and seventh day you shall desist of work.
So they kind of summarized everything in this.
It has a lot, This parsha has a lot, and almost each sentence talks about different concept. Then we have 3 pilgrimage festivals. We have a commandment to go to Yerushalayim, to Beit HaMikdash, which is Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. We speak about Bikurim, and in Pasuk 19, you shall not cook a kid in the milk of its mother. Means basar b'chalav. Now, Hashem promises that I shall send an angel before you to protect you on the way and to bring you to the place that I have made ready. Listen to his voice, fulfill all the commandments, and then I will be the enemy of your enemies, and I will persecute those who persecute you, and I will annihilate all the nations from before you. If you worship only Hashem your God, Hashem will bless your bread and your water, and he shall remove illness from your midst. There shall be no woman who loses her young or is infertile. I shall fill the number of your days. Means you will live a full lifetime without accidental deaths. Pasuk 28. Hashem describes how we're going to conquer the land of Israel. I shall send the hornet swarms before you, and it will drive away all the nations. Pasuk 30. Little by little shall I drive them away, until you become fruitful and occupy the land. Why? So that the land does not become desolate. And there should be someone who takes care of the land. Until the Jewish people are ready, someone will be there. When we are ready, Hashem will drive those people away and we're going to settle it. Pasuk 31 describes the borders of the land of Israel in the future, from the Sea of Reeds until the Mediterranean Sea, and until the Euphrates River. Now, chapter 24 describes the day before receiving of the Torah. The 4th of Sivan and the 5th of Sivan. We received the Torah on the 6th or 7th of Sivan, according to some opinions. And all the Jewish people went through the conversion process at this moment. What was the conversion process? We learn it from this. They did circumcision back in Egypt. They went to mikveh. They immersed themselves. They brought offerings in this parsha, and they accepted the mitzvot by saying Naaseh v'nishma. In pasuk 7, everything that Hashem has said we will do and we will obey. Now everyone who wants to convert in our times has to go through these 4 steps. He must have circumcision, mikveh, accept the mitzvot, and offerings. Offerings we cannot do because we don't have Bet HaMikdash. However, when Bet HaMikdash is built, we will bring offerings for whoever converted in the meantime. Then the last paragraph, the Torah describes how the Jewish people, Moshe with the elders, they went up Mount Sinai and they had a vision of God. They saw the God of Israel. This is on page 443. And under his feet was the likeness of sapphire brickwork. And it was like the essence of the heaven in purity. Whatever that vision was, then Moshe goes up to receive the tablets. And Moshe was on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights. This is how the parsha finishes, while Aharon stayed lower and the elders stayed lower, and then the rest of the nation stayed by the foot of the mountain. For 40 days Moshe was on the mountain in the cloud receiving the Torah, and Yoshua and Hur were with the people in Moshe's absence. This was a brief summary of the mitzvot in this parsha. We didn't mention all the mitzvot. We just mentioned the ones that we can see clearly from the pasukim. Each mitzvah again has levels and has details, and it requires further study.
How many altogether in this?
Altogether there are 54 mitzvot, 31 negative commandments, and 23 positive commandments.
But from the last week's Parsha Yisro, why did they call the Parsha that way?
Usually we call the Parsha by the first significant word in that Parsha. It may be first word, second or third or fourth, the first significant word in the Parsha. A lot of times it describes what's going to be in the Parsha also. From the beginning we already see, like Bereshit. Sometimes you have no idea what's going to be in the Parsha. Here it does tell us, it says Mishpatim. Mishpatim means laws or ordinances. So it tells you that there's going to be a lot of Mishpatim.
Because in Yisro they gave us the 10 Commandments. They could have called it differently, right?
Yitro doesn't necessarily tells us that it's going to be 10 Commandments. But our sages say that Yitro has a merit because he chose to join the Jewish people. He chose to abandon his family, his religion, and join. So he attached himself to the Torah, so he deserves the Parsha to be named after him.
Right. Thank you, Rabbi.
You're welcome. All the best.